So for all of us in this room, this is a simple fact. Today we are absolutely in the most interconnected time in human history, and it's only going to become more interconnected with companies like Exponential-e, with their networks coming into play, other vendors and other suppliers around the world doing exactly the same. Mobile working is a phenomenon. We're approaching 1.5 billion mobile workers at the moment. It's probably higher than that in reality. Video, to Steve's point earlier, is becoming, if not already, soon will be, one of the most preferred ways of communicating. And I like the point that Stephen made earlier. Isn't it bizarre that we're quite happy to do video in our social and yet not so keen to do it in our business and professional lives? And as a Polycom individual, I'm a little bit of a Luddite, and I can tell you now, it wasn't until probably 2 or 3 years ago that I used video extensively, and it absolutely changes the way you work, and it's very difficult to define in numbers, value, money, etc. It just is, and I really encourage people to try it. And in fact, Emma will know, and one of my colleagues in the room today, we used to put demo systems into environments for 30 days and then go and take them out. 99 times out of 100 they wouldn't let us take it because it had such a positive impact on what they did. So video, if not today, it certainly will become an extremely powerful and probably one of the leading communication tools. I think it's bigger than this, the bring your own device market. Who hasn't got a smart device? Very few, even in emerging regions. I'm fortunate enough to cover Europe, Middle East and Africa. The point Stephen made about the emerging markets is absolutely right. The way those guys work, because they're typically so far away from the major technology centers like Japan or North America or Western Europe, where the innovators, the manufacturers are, they don't necessarily get the support, so they tend to be clever, they tend to fix their problems. And they fix them in the way Stephen described, by using collaborative technology, because these smart devices just work. It's on, all the time, real time. So what can we look forward to? So I think we guessed this. It's probably going to be way in excess of that, and I think if you leveled all the smart device apps, 99% of which we probably use for about a week and then delete, but the reality is cloud is delivering application, business and personal, to us as individuals. And towards the end of this decade, we're talking about multiple devices. So think about it, how many devices do you use? I mean, I certainly have at my disposal, when I sit in my home office, I have 3 separate devices on my desk, plus 2 smart devices, mobile smart devices. So this 6 devices to one person is not beyond the realms of possibility. So I think we're going to definitely see that. And the market opportunity, whether it's 26, whether it's 10, whether it's 20, whether it's 50 billion, the reality is no one in this room, I think, can deny that the market opportunity for the devices that are going on to the Internet of Things that we keep talking about is next to immeasurable. So with this in mind, and we come back to the professional workplace, it really is time, if we're not already doing it, to really start considering very seriously how we're going to make use of these technologies and change the business. So the lovely video, fortunately I don't meet too many guys like the Vuza guy, but they are out there, and those companies are going to die or they're going to change, and that is the reality. And I'll come to why that's going to be the case in a little bit. So for vendors and for suppliers like Exponential-e, customer expectations are changing. It is changing because of technology that's coming out in consumer world. So long gone are the days when, my history has been predominantly in a technology vendor, and we've tended to dictate and we've tended to tell organizations what it is they should use, why they should use it, how they should use it, why ours is better than theirs, and blah, 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 blah. Gone, it's not happening now. Vendors like Polycom and our peers in the industry are desperately chasing the consumer technology. It's so smart, it's always on, and it sets expectations. So these expectations now multi-touch, whether it's iPhones, whether it's a VVX touch interface on a Polycom handset, you know, makes stuff easier. We've all got the stories of our kids walking up to TVs and trying to swipe the TV screen, right? They're 3, 4 years old. Why are they doing that? Because they're used to multi-touch interfaces by using iPads and tablets. It's always with you. You probably heard my phone go off earlier. It's always in my pocket, it's always within reach. Corporate policies. Polycom's one. I'm sure most of you are the same. We are having to adapt our corporate policies to allow and enable users to bring their own devices which they're comfortable with, but it's also part of their personality, and I thought that was quite an interesting point. You know, you watch the kids and their personality tends to drive around what they use on their mobile apps. We know about the proliferation. Social networking isn't just about social, it's professional. That line is definitely changing. I'm desperately trying to hold on to personal and professional life. It's becoming more and more difficult because they are intertwined. I hate to say it because I am a Luddite. Everything's going cloud, which is really good news for our hosts here, Exponential-e. It is going cloud. And it comes down ultimately to what Lee was talking about. If the network's not in place, the cloud can't happen. Everyone talks about why smart devices, cloud applications, everything going. Oh, it's technology, it's smart, it's easy to use. Wrong. Absolutely wrong. None of this works unless you've got connected. So that's the number one foundation that needs to be in place. And we're very, very lucky here in Western Europe where connectivity is less of an issue than it ever was, and then probably in some instances better than it ever will be, right? So we're good there. Let me talk about things like gamification. Gamification is a horrible American expression. Hate it. But I get it. You turn your apps and you turn your business processes into the same easy-to-use way that you would play a video game on a PlayStation or on your smart device. And wearables, yes, really. So we're laughing at this now, and we're laughing because wearables in a business environment, there are pockets, there are certain verticals where wearables are used, medical, for example, emergency response. But now go and look at certain age groups and them using wearables. So today we're talking about Apple Watches, we're talking about Fitbit, we're talking about all these bits and pieces. It will not be long before wearables become a real part of our business life. There's absolutely no doubt in my mind. Okay, so we're laughing at it now, but look who's behind it. Look what's happening. Some of the challenges, and the Google Glass one was a particularly good one, which has kind of gone off the market, and part of the reason was some of the legislation with the video capability of being able to take people who might not necessarily be aware that you're videoing them, and you potentially have the opportunity to stream in real time. Lots of privacy issues around that. That'll be got round. Definitely be got round. This is going to happen. So all of these customer expectations, and by customer I mean people, are changing what we have to deliver. So that changes the face of the workplace. It really does. And we've got to start doing this. So again, going over some of the stuff, but with a slightly different slant and maybe less detail than perhaps Stephen brought. And the workplace is changing. The workplace, for me as an individual, let's take me out of the IT industry, let's take me out of being anything to do with technology. My workplace is completely different. So for 3 hours yesterday, it was a car. For 2 hours the night before, it was a hotel room. The week before, it was a motorway service station. This morning was a coffee shop. Think about that. The kind of stuff we take for granted. Were we doing that 5 years ago? Were we doing that 8 years ago, 10 years ago? The answer is no, we weren't. And now we are. We take it for granted because it just happens, because it just connects. Flexible. You're always on. Mark, you saw the emails, another one of my colleagues in the audience today, up until 11 o'clock at night. I've been out all day, spending time with customers, time in the car on the phone. I've now got my day job to do. Okay, 8 a.m. Monday morning to 5:30 Friday is my work hour. After that I switch off. But in between time, it allows me, whether I'm at home, whether I'm in a hotel, whether I'm in a car, whether I'm in an airport, a coffee shop, to pick up on all the stuff that I need to get done during the course of the day. We're working from home, we're working from anywhere. Interestingly as well, that workplace is really changing. And again, I'll use Polycom as an example. We have development centres in Vancouver, in India, and Israel. We have sales and marketing offices all around the world, all the way through North and South America, all the way through Europe, Middle East and Africa, and all the way through the Asia Pacific and Oceanic territories. I can collaborate with any one of my colleagues at any time based on them not being asleep, which is, I think, a sackable offence in Polycom nowadays, right? Sleeping. And we're now, we're talking about business to business, but business to consumer is again another increasing area where the smart technology is enabling businesses and consumers to really interact, and we're seeing fantastic things like video contact centers beginning to come into play. We're seeing really cool high definition voice networks in play for consumers to really benefit from it. We're investigating wideband codecs for mobile technology and how we interoperate with all that stuff. So, this business to business, business to consumer as a workplace dynamic is real. So for us as technologists or vendors, we are having to really help support that evolving workplace. And we're very fortunate at Polycom. We're certainly not the only vendor, but at Polycom we're very fortunate in being right in there. And by the way, this creates enormous opportunity, enormous challenge as well. Enormous challenge. This market changes so damn fast because we're still significantly hardware based. You can't change a hardware product quite as quickly as you can change a software product. So it does create challenges. I think we're meeting them in many cases. I think we've got work to do in others. So that workspace needs the support of the vendors to really empower the users. Those are the users that are expecting experience. So if you think about our personal lives again, and again, dynamics, I spend a lot of time trying to take myself out of what we do and look at it from the perspective of someone who knows nothing about technology. Our lives, in terms of experience, if we take it away from professional, which part of our life is now not in high definition? Our personal life. Fantastic displays on screens, whether it's mobile devices, whether it's TVs, fantastic quality in audio, interaction, the user experiences that we're getting on smart devices and bespoke devices is really changing the expectation. So as a consequence, we have to build and develop products. So for Polycom, you probably know us for a number of different devices. Clearly we've got the VVX endpoints on the hosted IP telephony piece, which is both touch interface and manual interface, but it's high definition audio. Combines the best of both worlds in terms of user interface and application integration, all that great stuff. Similarly with the video, increasingly it's high definition, that's not an option. It's high definition video, it's high definition audio, has to be easy to use. Some of the new software solutions and cloud-based solutions we're bringing out make the video capability, and certainly a business-to-business environment, even more compelling than it ever was. And that's one of the challenge areas that we've got. People aren't buying multi-thousand-pound units to put in rooms and put on desks. They're buying software solutions and using smart devices or web camera-enabled laptops and desktops. And then finally, in that workspace, we really need to enable the collaboration. The points that Stephen made are absolutely true, and it's kind of personified by this next slide. So I did do a bit of research, I didn't know what was coming next. Millennials. So these are young people, Stephen. We call them millennials in Polycom. They don't wear suits and ties, they wear t-shirts, and they work on their Apple Macs in hotel lobbies. But they're clever. And if you're not paying attention to your kids, for those of you who've got kids, or you're not paying attention to young people in your personal lives, try it. I make a point of listening to my daughters and my son regularly about what they do, how they do it, why they do it. Some of it, to be fair, they don't want to share, and I think I can understand why, but they're very tech savvy. And they are a demographic in our workplace. There's going to be a very, very significant percentage, and that percentage of significance delivers influence as well. So there's going to be demands, and that video is kind of tongue-in-cheek, but organizations, and again, Polycom's another one, and I'm sure many of the organizations in this room are the same, Companies that don't deliver those flexibilities, those kind of solutions for people to be productive as and when they need, within reason, aren't going to have so many staff. Those that do will. Teaming. Again, being, excuse my language, being a little bit of an old fart, I'm not really good on social media. I watch the guys in our marketing teams and our social media teams and how they work and collaborate and build web pages and design stuff. And they do it between the US, between the Asia Pac, and between our Oceania regions. They do it online. And it's just done. And you then come out with a global, for Polycom, a global branded campaign or a global branded positioning, thought leadership, whatever it is, and it's consistent. So it's very, very powerful for multinationals. And I agree with this as well, speak their minds, because they're informed. I think you made another really good point about why would I need to learn that fact, I can Google it, is absolutely right. What we're seeing increasingly is people using technology to solve issues. Ultimately, if you think again, taking yourself out of a technology life, maybe I'm showing another side of me that probably I don't publicise too much, but let's say the tap's leaking. 99 times out of 100, the men in this room will try and fix it because they want to solve the problem. Invariably, it goes horribly wrong and we still end up paying a 100 quid call-out charge for the plumber. But it's indicative of naturally what we try and do. We try to solve issues, we try to solve problems. All right? This is something else we see. Because of all the great automation technology, because of all of these great applications, because of data analytics and all the big data stuff that's coming through, a lot of those mundane tasks and reporting and delivering invoices and lots of stuff that was done manually is now automated. And what that does is it frees up a lot of time for real key problem solving. Okay? I'm seeing that a lot with our support guys. They're not just going through the standard process of stuff because a lot of our support ticketing is automated. But what they are doing is now working and collaborating with customers much better to not only solve issues, but then to come back. And I saw actually evidence of this yesterday through our tier 3 guys about, we keep doing this, why don't we fix it by doing this? And suddenly, the next thing you know, we're using an internal social media site and ideas are being exchanged about how to get stuff done. So to come back to the foundation of the point, you've got to have a network in place to do it. You've got to have the technology to make it happen. You've got to have the people, and you've got to be able to make sure that wherever they are and whatever they are, and this was a group of individuals between North America and the United Kingdom last night, 11 o'clock, solving an issue, or certainly delivering an idea of how to solve a particular challenge. So this is real case in point stuff. And then, the bottom piece, and this is something that's dear to everyone's heart, is, security is a big part of it. I've been quite encouraged over the last few weeks by hearing increasingly that my organisation's solutions tend to be more secure than a lot of our competitors, which, because you read the spec sheets, it all looks the same. The reality is it's not. It's how it's deployed and how it's done. So security is always under attack. So you need to be looking for partners, vendors and suppliers that can make sure that you make it as secure as is possible. So I'm quite aware of time. These are some stats that came about, and I'll fill in some of the gaps. So these are Polycom customers that were surveyed by a company called Wainhouse. So in video, we've been using this argument for a million years. Saves travel costs. So what? Okay? So when you start talking about large multinationals, when you're saving in excess of $4 million a year, or £2.5 million, and we're talking about pharmaceutical companies, we're talking about very large high-brand confectionery companies that are all Polycom customers. Just the travel cost argument alone is worth the investment, but it is a bit of a tired conversation. Everyone kind of accepts reducing travel costs. Insurance companies, massive cost reduction in deploying collaborative technologies. Efficiency and productivity, without any shadow of a doubt. The ability to communicate. In fact, Mark, you made a comment to me earlier. You spent your life on instant messaging with your team and your management. And it was just, rather than making a phone call, they're online, quick question, yes, no, done, bang. Okay? So that productivity, it frees you up to do other things rather than trying to find the phone number, dialing the number, making the phone call, leaving a voicemail, waiting for the call back, etc., transferring documents backwards and forwards, email responses. So the collaborative technology is really powerful. And just finally on that, while you look through the numbers, I was lucky enough to be involved in a project some years ago with a major Swedish phone organisation, not the immediately obvious one, by the way, the other one. They challenged us with putting some collaborative technology. It was a video company, an IP-based video company, long before my days at Polycom. Anyway, the long and the short of it is we gave them a solution. They had an unbelievable network. That wasn't an issue. Everything worked. Fantastic. We asked them to come to a partner event. And the guy came along from the phone company, and he said one thing when he addressed our customers and partners. He said, using this technology did one thing and one thing alone, and I cannot put a value on it. And it reduced our time to market to compete with our number one competitor by 3 months. What value is that to a manufacturing organisation? Because they could put the guys in the Nordics, the guys in manufacturing in the Far East, and the guys in sales and marketing in North America together. And they could go from concept to design to reality. And they dropped that by 3 months. Okay, so these are really, really powerful arguments. But they need deployment, they need cultural change. You need to be going into your work staff, your employees, and making sure they use it, encouraging them to use it rather than sitting on their shoulder to make sure they're not on Facebook. Right? Let them use Facebook. It's probably for work as well. So all of this stuff and productivity is just the beginning. I think we're on a journey now with this whole cloud concept. And increasingly we're seeing phenomenal revenues come out of cloud providers, which again creates another challenge and a good challenge, very positive challenge for Polycom. But that is to adapt to the cloud, to adapt models, business processes. So it isn't just about, hey, plug it in, download it from the cloud. You've also got the vendors associated with it that want to go with it rather than innovate already in it, i.e. traditional companies like Polycom have to innovate, have to change process. And I'm pleased to say we're seeing that. We're seeing a real shift in the last 5-6 months, in fact probably 9 months, within my own organisation of a real willingness to adapt and change to this market. You'll see a lot of our competitors and a lot of our peers in the industry do exactly the same. Or you've got companies that have grown up in this business and they will either go successfully well or be acquired or both. There's a couple of things. I'm not going to go through all the details of this, but I just want to give you a couple of very, very brief reference points. So these are referenceable. This is material you can take down from our website. This is real stuff that happened. So the first one was the investment group Dominion, based out in Florida. Really around the telephony piece. Old, clunky, expensive system. Wasn't helping them, wasn't allowing them to bring in communications to a new acquisition that they'd made. So they had, it was an office in Virginia and an office in Florida, base office in Florida. They had no ability because of all the disparate systems to do stuff. So they came to us, and the beauty for you guys is, so BroadSoft powered, same as Exponential-e, cloud-based system, with Polycom units on the end, and it's the VVX, voice and video experience, business media devices that went onto this. Because it was flexible, because it allowed them to effectively switch over almost on an overnight, over weekend basis, it was a very compelling solution for them. These are the key bits at the bottom. We just made it simple. The user didn't care. They weren't interested ultimately in what the technology is. What they wanted to do is leave Friday, come back Monday, and either know what it was they were doing, or, as we deployed, training videos on each of the devices where they just hit a hotkey and it showed them how to use. the front screen was intuitive enough that they could make phone calls and or video calls, or just type 4 dial numbers to make sure that communication between their two offices really worked. Their benefits were pretty easy. There was no impact to their communication. Nothing went down. All that happened was the device on the desk changed, and they had the material on the desk for those users to learn within 15 minutes how to use this new device. Clearly, the support requirements and maintenance requirements, massive cost reduction for those guys. They benefited, obviously, from visual communications. So Stephen's absolutely right. Even though I'm working in the IP telephony piece within Polycom, the audio bit is kind of okay. It's better with high definition, but it's really, really better when you can contextualize it with tone and visual. 70% of communication is non-verbal, and that's a fact that we've been banding around for a long time. For them as well, client service, so they expanded this so they can have business to consumer, business to business. So that really helped. And then telecom and networking costs went down because they went to an IP technology rather than the minute technology. This is why you can draw many conclusions from this. Armenia probably doesn't necessarily have the best press on the planet. Once you go there, you realise what a enormously forward-looking country it is and how they adopt technology, and the government was no exception. So they were in a similar situation. They had a whole bunch of clunky systems that were costing them a fortune. They were getting ripped. To be fair and be honest, they didn't buy a cloud solution because simply the infrastructure around the organisation, around the country, that geography wasn't strong enough. So they did use IPPBX technologies, but data centre based, all backed up, full resilience. Really, really cool. I was lucky enough to meet Tigran Sargsvan, who was the Prime Minister, and he came to one of these shows, and he was just blown away by the VVX. And the reason I mention that is because when you get to the endpoint part of these solutions, the network's kind of good, and the devices are kind of different because they're very emotive. Who in here's got an Apple? Probably most of you, you've got an Apple device that you use. And the reason you've got an Apple device is not because it's better than anything else, because it isn't. And it really isn't. The reason I don't have an Apple is I don't view it as a business tool because it, until recently, didn't last long enough. So for my application, it was not suitable. The battery's gone in 3 hours. It's not sustainable when I'm moving around the world. So I've gone the other way. But what Apple have done is they've done something very, very clever. They've made it very, very easy to use. I can use it, so it's idiot-proof, completely idiot-proof. Right? What this guy saw was something that looked very, very easy. Touch screens, one-click videos, familiar interface with a dial pad, and he kind of like, this is the best of both worlds. So he effectively said, guys, you're going to make this happen. So we partnered with an IPPBX vendor, and we went through this solution with them, and I'm really pleased to say they actually bought the most expensive devices we do. I was really pleased with that. There were personal reasons for it, and I think that was mostly because all of the senior ministers and cabinet members wanted to make sure that they had the most expensive device to reflect just how important they really were. But the net result was the same. They had a massive upgrade to deploying a cost-effective network. So we took a small chunk of this, of the overall deal. I mean, the actual integrator, it was a big opportunity, multiples of tens of millions. So we took quite a small part of it. But it was actually one of the most influential parts because it was the touch point of the solution. All the black magic stuff sits in the background. The users, the ministers, the politicians, the admins, the clerks, don't care, not interested, doesn't matter, it just works. Bit at the end that they touch really did matter. So to make all of that network work was really powerful. And they got all the benefits. I mean, their media, their ability to communicate out to the regions around Armenia, like our constituencies here in the UK, just went up, tenfold. So in summary, just to give you a couple of real cases, and I deliberately didn't pick a UK organisation because we'd all know them. I deliberately picked something a little bit off the wall. in terms of the US and Armenia. But for us as a technology community, our responsibility here is to deliver that experience that users love. So, Apple do it, just highlighted that. They do something. Don't get me wrong, I'd have another Apple tomorrow, as soon as my contract finishes on this. Now the batteries work for longer, okay? Because that user experience wasn't great. It now will be, because I'll be able to have all the easy to use, idiot-proof stuff, and it'll last. We've got to make sure that the IT organisations are on board. It helps them, makes their life easier. It integrates into what they've got. It allows them to migrate, it allows them to update, and it allows them to innovate. So it's really, really powerful for these organisations having the IT and telecoms departments on board. And ultimately, it's got to be the choice that people like Lee and his peers with other organisations have got to make the decision. Got to make it easy for them. And I really genuinely believe now that with organisations with the calibre and pedigree of Exponential-e and their peers around Europe that we're very pleased to work with, this cloud stuff makes that CFO's decision much, much easier. And interestingly, what we're seeing increasingly, and I think Lee will be pleased to hear this, cloud or hosted has always been very much perceived as a small to medium-sized business solution. And yes, it is. And it delivers a great number of benefits in terms of predictable cost, in terms of very good uptime now that the networks are in a really stable and reliable state across IP. But it also has massive impacts for large enterprises. And Dan, I think you're aware that we've been lucky enough to be associated with a number of end users that are using cloud technologies today, both in this country and around other parts of Europe, and we have about half a dozen that are in excess of 30,000 seats, and I'm talking about telephones. That's hosted IP phones into organisations of in excess of 30,000 seats, and we have multiple of those accounts. So it's not just an SMB technology, it's not just for small to medium businesses, it is as effective and perhaps in some cases even more effective for enterprise.